Oh, yeah.
We played for about 2.5 years all around town, and that led to my first single. I'd done some singles in the country and western and stuff like that. But,
was Gary Young in the Rock Doctors? Sorry.
Gary Young and John Power, Wayne Burt. Jeff Burston dropped out of it. When we actually got it established about a year later than this first little fortnight burst, we had Wayne Burt on lead guitar and Chris Stockler lead guitar, John Power, the big boodle, the bass player from Jojo Zepp, and Gary Young and myself, and it was an incredible experience. Because
I've got the album at home.
The Rock Doctors Now Hear This. Yeah. Yeah, well, there you go. That was my first proper record, and that was my first time on Hey Hey and all that sort of stuff. And then after I did lots of sessions, and I got the call. So that was about 1981 or 82, and lots of other rock and roll bands in between there. Jane Clifton's Go-Go Boys, and millions of different things,
Yeah.
And then I got into a band at the Grain Store called the Nads, which is a big-time cover band, and huge crowds, massive, and just playing covers and Brian Ferry type tunes. And the bloke who ran the Grain Store, he became a really good friend, and he was a manager for a band called the Southern Sons, and he said, "Oh, we need a harmonica solo. Do you come in and do it?" And I did it, and that was produced by a guy called Ross Fraser, who was John Farnham's producer. He said, "Oh, look, there just might be a harmonica track on John's next album. Give me a number." And it was about 6 months later he phoned up, and there was. And when they found out I could play other things, because I could play a few different instruments, I became a sort of utility player. That was in 1990. So on that first farm tour, I played tenor and soprano sax and regular harmonica, chromatic harmonica, acoustic guitar, sitar, and some stuff on the drums, like a tom-tom drum kit with the drummer, and myself and Hirschfelder and the drummer used to do a sort of, tom-tom tribute to something. I forget what it was, And a bit of sitar was interesting, and so because I could play a bunch of different things, a bit of flute, I became a terrible flute player, but get away with it in rock and roll, and I became a sort of utility player. And that about 2 years into that, Chong Lim came into that band when Hirschfelder quit to become a great big movie maker, and Chong just developed all this work, and all of a sudden we were doing Don't Forget Your Toothbrush, and it was basically the Farnham Band, and then it was IMT hosted by Frankie J. Holden. We did 13 Logies in a row, and then Dancing with the Stars came up. I did the first 7 seasons of Dancing with the Stars, and I got sick of it and quit that. So the TV career, lots and lots of Hey Hey with John, and TV specials with John and stuff, but John was on Hey Hey more than any other person.
Yeah. And
we did entire album launches. We'd do 5 and 6 tracks at a time when we'd launch an album on Hey Hey, and it's a great loss to the industry too, Hey Hey, as was Countdown.
Yeah.
Now, I never did Countdown, which was a great regret. I wish I'd done Countdown, but it finished the year that I started with Johnny, so we didn't get around to doing it. But that's my TV career, such as it is, It's just really just standing in the background and playing along with whatever I'm told to do,
And your dad would have been proud.
Yeah, well, my poor old dad, he was very upset that I'd quit the public service to become a musician. He thought I was insane. He'd been through the war. He'd been a prisoner of war, and the idea of giving up a public service job he thought was... And but being on the television was all he thought that mattered, and it was a great legitimizer. And I rang up my parents, I was going to ring up to say, watch Hey Hey on Saturday morning. I'm going to be on telly for the first time ever. And he died on the Thursday night before that happened, so I didn't even let him know that I was going to be on TV, because I was going to ring on the Friday and say, don't forget to watch tomorrow. So that was a terrible thing. So he never knew that I had a bit of success, but my mum did, and so she was quite happy about it. She was sort of fated. When the Johnny thing first exploded in the 90s for me, and it was 6 and 7 months of tours all around the world and records and on the telly all the time, but she was like the local celebrity up at Coburg. People would be asking for autographs up at the shops. Quite amazing.
Steve, you played harmonica on Chain Reaction. I know it was co-written by Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics. Did it come with a harmonica part?
It did, and that's one thing about Ross and John. They're quite literal people, and it was actually written by Dave Stewart and his wife, Annie. I think it's Annie. But anyway.
Annie Lennox, was it?
Oh, no, it wasn't Annie Lennox. It was his actual wife, something Stewart. I thought it was Anne Stewart. Maybe it's not. Anyway, it's his wife.
Right.
It's D&A Stewart is the people who wrote it, so maybe it's not Annie. It might be Amy.
Right.
Or Annalise. I don't know. I'm just guessing. And it was just done on his kitchen table. It's done on the sort of cheapest. You can hear the dishes and stuff being done in the background. And he's a classic sort of, Bob Dylan harmonica or Paul Kelly, just, in a rack around his neck playing in first position and, huffing and puffing. And this really rough song with the kids running around in the background. But John loved it. And because they're quite literal people, all there was on Dave Stewart's demo was the guitar and his harmonica around his neck. So that's what we did. It's just John on guitar, Ross Fraser on guitar, a drum machine going boom, 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 and me playing harmonica. And we actually did a gig in Germany at the Nürburgring racetrack with Sting and Toto were on it. We were about fourth or fifth on the bill. And Dave Stewart's, whatever that band was called, the Psycho Cowboys or something, I forgot what they were called, but he had his band, and he was in a tent, somewhere, and I just walked in and said, "Oh, look, I'd like to thank you for writing Chain Reaction." He said, "Oh, is that right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm the harmonica player." He said, "Oh, good on you." And I said, "I've got a whole career out of it. Oh, it's just a session musician, and here I am in Germany thanking you for writing that song." He said, "Oh, good on you, lad." And that was all, but if he'd been oboe on there, I wouldn't be none of this would have happened.
Yeah.
Because John said, "Oh, that's the demo. That's the way we should do it," and it was great. So I went to the studio and they just gave me free rein. They just said, "I'll play whatever you want."
Amazing. And I'm going to, if it's not too much to ask, I'm going to ask you if you could take the listeners through the sort of the main rhythm chugging part that you do in that, and perhaps give them a few tips on what you're doing.
All right. Well, that's actually the key of A, so it's D cross harp, but I don't have one of those with me at the moment. In fact, I broke it this morning, said I'm $50 out because I was practicing for this show, and I broke it, so I'm $55 down. But I've picked up an F harmonica, so it would be in C, key of C, and I've got an F harmonica. And essentially what it is, it's got the main lick in it is just the ordinary old-fashioned shake, the fourth and fifth shake together, and then it's a chugging rhythm just by sucking the first hole, blowing the second hole, and then sucking two or three together. A lot of people end up always bending the second hole, but if you're blowing it, you're getting the sixth note, which is not as atonal as the bent note is. But anyway, I'll just do it roughly, quickly, with the shake at the start and then a bit of a chugging rhythm, and I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing. I'll put the phone down, and I'll probably be too far away for you to hear it. But anyway, here we go. So that's what you're blowing on the second hole here. That's the essence of the rhythm.
Yep.
But you just do it with a few notes open up. It's not particularly strict. And I'm articulating that by going tit-tit-tit at the top of the gum behind my front teeth. Tit-tit-tit. And then there's the shake in the middle again, which sometimes I'll bend down, so you can bend that shake down so it goes. And that's the essence of the whole thing, Phil. It's just a bit of a trick and a bit of mucking around when you get down to it.
Yeah, sounds great. That's the main thing. And you did have a bit of success with it too.
Yeah, well, I was lucky with that. Yeah, very lucky. And of course, on the actual record, I don't play that much on the record, and I was quite circumspect in my playing. But then that became the single off the record and the name of the album and all that sort of stuff. And so when we did that tour, we'd leave that because it was the main single. It was the last single John had that went to number one, and he always kept your number one single. We always close the show with You're the Voice, but the first encore was always me playing Chain Reaction because it was his current hit. But I'd do it by, as soon as we'd run off stage, I would have a roadie with me to protect me, and we'd run as far as we could to the end of the whatever auditorium we were in, and climb up the stairs, and I'd walk through the audience playing it. And often I'd be completely out of breath from running to the other end of the thing, but I had to have the roadie behind me because there wasn't radio mics at that stage. We actually had an incredibly long lead. Radio mics were a bit unreliable. Within a couple of years we had the radios, but this roadie would be behind me trying to stop people standing on the lead and pulling it out of a backpacker, all that sort of stuff. And I'd walk through the audience for about 2 or 3 minutes and just, chugging away, and a few licks here and there, getting progressively out of breath, and then have to get up on the stage and actually play the song. Sometimes I'd end up on my knees. We've already done a 2.5 hour show, and I'm exhausted, now I've got to do this. Oh, geez. And as I get older and older, it's harder to do.
loves that, and they really love the harmonica and the sound of the harmonica.
I reckon that comes from, and I agree with that, and I'm sure that comes from the fact that there's essentially this feeling that I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a toy. The diatonic harmonica is essentially a toy that some very clever people turned into a brilliant instrument.
Yep.
But it's essentially a toy. You know, the chromatic harmonica is the real harmonica, but you know,
I
mean that in inverted terms. I don't mean that, but you know, that's what people think. So there's this essence of, I could get a harmonica. That's why you see, you know, a $2 harmonica in the reject shop. You don't see any other instruments.
No, that's right.
But you see the $2 harmonica because, you know, basically anyone can pick one up and have a go at it. You know?
Yeah.
So there's that identification, I think, and everyone's got an uncle who plays a harmonica. I mean, I'm that uncle now, you know. It's very sad, right? You know, play a bit of harmonica for the kiddies, you know. Oh, okay. Driving everyone nuts playing at Christmas time.
Yeah, well, my kids aren't a great fan, I must admit, but that might be just my playing.
No, that's being a parent.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what
It's
you do. I'm sure it happens to, you know, Stevie Wonder's kids. They go, oh, shut up, Dad, will you? My share of me, not my share of me or more again, crikey. And they're just embarrassed by you, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of times the kids have been to the show, there's people, they might come to a pub and see me play with someone else, and there'll be the odd person there who's a Johnny fan, and I want to get their photo taken with me or get an autograph, which is a bit embarrassing, you know.
Yeah.
When the kids, they just hide their face and, oh, no, Dad's signing an autograph for that old lady. And I get these women that come up to me, and they're in their 40s, and they say, oh, my mum loves you. Yeah, oh, thanks very much. I feel really good now. I forgot. I looked in the mirror this morning, and I am 62. I forgot.
Oh, dear. The aging rock star, eh?
Well, yeah, rock star's not the word, but the aging side man.